Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May 11th Oregon Tourism Commission meeting. To everyone that has joined us through this webinar or through Travel Oregon's industry YouTube channel, good morning. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Today's meeting materials, including the agenda and supplemental material, can be found on the Travel Oregon industry website if you'd like to follow along. Commissioners, I'd like to acknowledge that in holding a live stream meeting today, we meet all public meeting notice requirements under state law. And as our meeting today is being convened virtually, I'd like to ask each commissioner to take themselves off mute and introduce themselves, perhaps beginning with Vice Chair Francisco.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nigel Francisco. I am the CEO of Ninkasi Brewing Company in the beautiful Willamette Valley. Go to Richard.
Good morning, Richard Boyles, President, Merite Hotel Management Group and SICAN Development Corporation.
Lucinda.
Good morning. My name is Lucinda DeNovo, and I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at the Mill Casino in Coos Bay, Oregon.
Good morning. Greg.
Greg Willits, Five Pine Lodge in beautiful Sisters, Oregon. That smells wonderful this time of year.
Mr. Anway.
Good morning, Don Anway, Newman Hotel Group, Ashland, Oregon.
Good morning, Don. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning, everybody. Maria Ponzi, formerly president and owner of Ponzi Vineyards in the North Willamette Valley.
Kenji.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kenji Sugahara. I am owner of ACAM Aerials in the film and television industry. I hail from Salem. And Greg, I can't wait to come out to Sisters to smell the air out there. And I'll be out there in around 2 weeks.
Just never quite know where it's going. Good morning, Mia.
Good morning. My name is Mia Shepard from Maupin, Oregon, and owner of Little Creek Outfitters and Juniper River Adventures.
And Todd, care to say hello?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, commissioners. Todd Davidson, CEO at Travel Oregon.
Thank you, sir. And good morning. I'm Scott Youngblood, chair of the commission currently and the general manager at the Embassy Suites Hotel up at Washington Square in Portland. Well, commissioners, it's been 14 months since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. As of yesterday, 2,543 deaths have been reported in Oregon. Our statewide tourism community has been shaken to its foundation, and we still don't have a strong sense of how long recovery is going to take. However, as we look forward to hearing reports today from Travel Oregon staff, I find comfort and renewed confidence in the progress we're making and the great work happening to rebuild and restore our economy and the lives of Oregonians. As noted in last week's Industry E-News, Travel Oregon just awarded more than $2.4 million in competitive and recovery grants across every region of our state to support Oregon's recovery. And there have also been positive and noteworthy events for members of our commission, which I'd be ashamed not to mention. The first one was alluded to just a moment ago. Last week, Ponzi Vineyards officially became part of the Bollinger family of portfolio. Congratulations are in order to Maria and the entire Ponzi family, as we recall your contributions toward putting Oregon on the map for world-class wines, as well as creating and supporting equally world-class events like the International Pinot Noir Celebration, Oregon Pinot Camp, and Salud, the Oregon Pinot Noir Auction. Maria, would you care to comment?
Well, I'll try not to get too emotional. That just got me. It's very recent. We had a closing of a transaction just last week where we had the CEO chairman Etienne Bizot from the Bollinger family visit us. Todd Davidson, our CEO, is able to join us for a lunch with him where he was able to explain really his family philosophy, his family's history, which dates back to 1826 in Champagne, France, and his intentions and excitement about being in the Willamette Valley in particular. And we're just really thrilled about this transaction. It's obviously, a bittersweet moment for the family in that we have, as you noted, been involved since the beginning of the wine industry, frankly, in the state. So it's been a lifetime of building and growing what we think is a very successful industry for the state and economic force as well, and has been obviously a driving factor for tourism. So we're very proud of our accomplishments, but we really feel that with this passing of the torch to this esteemed family, that there is more to go, farther to go with the Willamette Valley in particular, but I think just Oregon as a whole in terms of a wine destination, and continuing to put Oregon on the map as a world-class producer for wine. So we're really excited about it, and thank you for recognizing us today.
Congratulations again. It's truly incredible. Ninkasi's BLR, or Better Living Room, will be opening just in time for Memorial Day weekend and includes a new outdoor patio space. Ninkasi also rose to number 33 of the 50 largest breweries in the U.S. Congratulations, Commissioner Nigel. And so the question must now be asked, will we be able to get a table in the BLR if we say we know you?
Of course, you're all welcome anytime.
And will knowing you get us a better table in the BLR?
Probably not.
Well, it was worth asking. Congratulations again. It's a lot of work that goes into something like that. I'd also like to note that Mia recently completed a month-long, what many of us would regard as bucket list trip, rafting and fishing the Grand Canyon. Maria, not to put you on the spot, are there highlights or maybe a photo slideshow that you'd like to share with those of us who fantasize about an experience like yours?
Well, thank you for mentioning it. The Grand Canyon is a very magical place. It's everything everyone talks about. And well, I must say it's very good to be back home after 21 days without a shower. So, and I still, the rivers in Oregon and my home waters are dear to my heart and will always be number one. So thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. And commissioners, not to overlook, anyone, are there other milestones or highlights to share with our industry partners today? Well, thank goodness at least 3 of you are living right. On Monday, April 26th, the commission meeting notice was posted to the commission meetings webpage and announced in the industry e-news. This included the agenda, the draft 21 through 23 strategic plan and budget, a public comment form and instructions, and a link to this live stream. The comment that was submitted has been shared with the commission and will be posted to the industry site and become part of the public record for today's meeting. I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the author and our friend Scott West, as I believe his desire to honor the Travel Oregon professionals whose positions were cut in 2020 reflects the need we all feel to honor each of the many thousands of team members our businesses and industry have lost over the last year. The legacy of all of these folks whose hard work has elevated and moved our industry and economy forward will forever be appreciated. And so we're grateful for that commentary. We're going to move on to commission business and the commission packet. I'd like to confirm, commissioners, that everyone has received and had a chance to review their commission packet, including the financials.
Yes.
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 Oh, thank you. And I'd also like to thank Commissioner Francisco for reviewing the financials with myself and Todd, Jeff, and Kathleen prior to this meeting. Nigel, would you care to provide the commission with an update?
Yep. Thank you, Chair Youngblood. We did meet to go over the latest financials. We reviewed the most current fiscal year-to-date financials that were sent out and posted on the industry website. Those were what we reviewed. We learned yesterday that the May deposit of $3.3 million brings Travel Oregon to 103.4% of the adopted 2019 through 2021 budget. and there's still one deposit still yet to be received that will be attributed to this biennium. So Todd will share more about this during future presentations and sort of where these dollars will go. I'd also like to add that obviously over the last 14 months has been incredibly challenging. And I think that the Travel Oregon staff led by Todd has done a fantastic job to right size our budget and get us in a place that, you know, with Scott's comments, we're all very hard to make those decisions, but ultimately we're stronger as an organization, and we'll come out stronger as an organization because of those cuts that were made. So again, thank you to the Travel Oregon staff for rolling with the punches and making the necessary changes to keep us strong and healthy as an organization.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nigel. I want to confirm that everyone has had an opportunity to review the February 23rd meeting minutes and determine whether there are any questions or comments about those meeting minutes. Sometimes we catch a misspelling or, all right, good. Well, if there are no questions or comments, I will take a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and for the second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. And any opposition? Great. Then the February 23rd commission meeting minutes are approved and will be posted to the commission section of the Travel Oregon Industry website. Commissioners, each year, the commission completes a review of the performance of the Travel Oregon CEO, Todd over there. The process to inform that review will be led by Vice Chair Francisco, Commissioner Boyles, and myself, and will include a survey of stakeholders and Travel Oregon staff, as well as direct input from you, the members of the Tourism Commission, to discuss action on the review. The process will begin in earnest in the coming weeks, and we look forward to the input and insights received throughout this process. Commissioners, do any of you have questions or comments about the CEO evaluation process? Alrighty then. Well then, Commissioners, I'm now going to ask Todd to take a few minutes and walk us through the draft strategic plan and budget being prepared for 21 through 23. If you're ready to go through that, Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Chair Youngblood. I am very ready to take you through this and share with you the work that the team has completed in earnest, along with the impact and input that we've received from our stakeholders and industry partners over the last several months. I'd like to begin the review of our plan by grounding us really in what has been the bedrock, the foundation of our strategic plans for the past couple of bienniums, and that is acknowledging that our vision is a better life for all Oregonians through strong, sustainable local communities that welcome a diversity of explorers. You know, one of the things that I've always cherished about this vision is the fact that, candidly, you don't see the word tourism nestled in that vision. You know, the mission of Travel Oregon is certainly to inspire travel that is driving community enhancement and economic development, but our vision is that better life for all Oregonians. And it's through the process of making sure that we're also welcoming a diversity of explorers. That mission, inspiring travel that's driving community enhancement and economic development, also acknowledges our role as a destination management organization. It's not only the economic development aspects. We're very fluent and very capable of speaking about the economic contributions of the travel and tourism industry to Oregon. But it's also that enrichment and the betterment of the communities throughout the state and then the lives of all Oregonians as the travel and tourism industry in Oregon thrives. So being able to keep an eye on and track resident sentiment, to be able to look at some of the things that we've been tracking over the years in terms of talking about areas of Oregon that may be feeling that there's pressure from visitation and the like. These are things that we want to take into account as we look at not only our rebuild plan, but the future planning work that we're going to be talking about as well when we talk about our transformational plan going forward. One of the things that began being incorporated in our strategic plans back in 2019 was looking at the values that we as the Travel Oregon team certainly cherish. Now, moving forward, key parts of these are going to include that we're going to strive to preserve Oregon's natural beauty in everything that we do. This rebuild plan is about building strength and resiliency for a sustainable future. Under True North, obviously taking ownership of our work and honoring our commitments to you as commissioners, to one another as the Travel Oregon staff team, to the residents of the state of Oregon, to our stakeholders in the industry, and to Oregon, this place that we have the privilege of promoting. As we look to trailblaze, we want to lead the way through innovations, and we want to set the bar high and not be afraid to fail. And of course, under that value of canopy, we want to make sure that we're celebrating and inviting diverse cultures and perspectives and voices. The equity statement also became part of our strategic plan during the 2019-2021 biennium. It recognizes our commitment to ensuring that our work helps Oregon become that more equitable destination so that everyone that travels this state enjoys their journey and feels welcome and valued and respected. We're committed to a number of shared values, but chief amongst them are understanding what equity is and acknowledging that not everyone has the same starting point. We see ourselves as lifelong learners regarding equity, and we're committing to doing the necessary repair work that's needed if a misstep occurs. And we want to work to ensure that our intent aligns with our impact. So where are we? Where are we now? And where is it that we're going with this rebuild plan? Well, we actually see three primary phases in response to the pandemic. The first is the phase that we've been in since March of 2020, and that's how do we mitigate the impact? We've heard the stories, we've experienced the layoffs. We have seen the businesses that have either shuttered or closed temporarily. And how do we mitigate those impacts? That's been our focus since March of 2020. We're now entering this phase of rebuilding the industry. And we're going to be looking for ways that we can transform tourism in Oregon to ensure a more resilient, more future-proof opportunity for the state's travel and tourism industry. So the rebuild plan that we're entering into now, we see as a bridge between where we are now and the transformational plan that the industry needs. So the purpose of the rebuild plan is to really make sure that we're focused on rebuilding Oregon's travel and tourism industry to the benefit of both residents and visitors, while laying the foundation of that transformational strategic plan. The rebuild plan will be revised. We're going into this very clear-eyed. While it may have a 2-year budget, and we're speaking about it as a 2-year plan, our eyes are wide open that this plan really is a bridge to a more transformational plan that the industry needs. We're looking at future-proofing the industry, making sure that it's resilient, that we have the opportunity to really reimagine the role that the travel and tourism industry can play in Oregon's economy. So an updated version of this plan will result in this transformational plan that will be presented for your consideration and adoption in early 2022 and become a longer term plan as we envision for lasting up to 4 years through 2025. Now, some may be wondering why the need to actually transform the industry. What is it that we're really looking to do here? Well, let's acknowledge, first of all, we're living in very uncertain times. Chair Youngblood acknowledged that in his opening comments that there's still a tremendous amount of uncertainty. Yes, vaccines are rolling out. Yes, cases we've experienced what has been referred to as a fourth surge. And at the same time, we're also seeing that curve start to bend back down in terms of the number of cases. So it's an ever shifting landscape. Demand has been impacted in the travel and tourism industry. Supply chains have been impacted, not only here in Oregon, not only here in the US, but around the globe. Supply chains have been impacted. Access to Oregon, access to the United States has been impacted, and it's going to come back in phases and stages. So we have to be nimble, we have to be responsive, we have to make sure that we're retaining the highest levels of flexibility possible. We know that time and resources are limited. Our budget's been impacted, our partners' budgets have been impacted. The businesses that we have the privilege of promoting across the state of Oregon have been in a position where they have had to either close temporarily, consider closing permanently. They've had to lay off staff. Their resources and that enable them to be able to partner with us, to leverage and align with our programs, have similarly been impacted. We're dealing with multiple crises here. Not only the pandemic, but the wildfires from last year and the social justice movement have created tremendous turmoil within the travel and tourism industry here in Oregon and truly around the world. I believe that the reason we need to transform is because we have an obligation to step into this gap that's been created by the pandemic and seize the opportunity to transform the role that the tourism industry plays in Oregon's economy. As we transition towards this rebuild plan, we have to recognize that we're doing so both within and because of unknowns and uncertainties that still persist. A tourism destination, no surprise to any of you as members of the Tourism Commission and to many of those in the audience that are watching today, a destination is a really complex system. And the impacts of COVID-19, as I noted earlier, have impacted the categories of supply and demand and what the industry needs and the sentiment across the state, both from residents and visitors alike. It's revealed challenges and opportunities that need to be addressed in our rebuild strategy. I believe that these insights and these learnings are going to validate the key actions that are outlined in the plan. They're going to identify opportunities for us to be able to focus and prioritize our approach. And they're also going to highlight critical findings, which will inform our strategies for that transformational plan. So let's start by looking at what some of the critical uncertainties are in the supply chain. The leisure and hospitality sector in Oregon has lost nearly 39% of its payroll employment. This is compared to a loss of just 9.1% across all Oregon industries. Consider that for just a moment. 4-to-1 in terms of job losses in the leisure and hospitality sector compared to all sectors of Oregon's economy. Our leisure and hospitality employment in Oregon is still 24% below pre-COVID-19 levels. According to STR, lodging supply in Oregon dropped by 10% immediately as the pandemic came on in April of 2020. Resident sentiment towards welcoming visitors into the state and into their communities finally went from a negative number to a more positive number only early this year. We spent a number of months where there was great concern about visitors traveling to communities, primarily because of this potential to spread COVID-19. Of course, we know that international flights at PDX have been suspended since spring of 2020, although we are starting to hear some positive news about those flights returning. And of course, Oregon State campgrounds were closed for a number of months as well. Now on the demand side, we've seen visitor spending in Oregon drop from $12.8 billion to $6.5 billion in 2020, nearly a 50% decline. Lodging revenue dropped more than 48% from March of 20 to March of 21. Road trips of 50 miles or more to and within Oregon were down by nearly 20% year over year from 2019 to 2020. And we're all very familiar with the declines in terms of throughput at Portland International Airport, bottoming out at being down 96.3% in April of 2020, climbing to a high of only being down 52% on December 30th of 2020. One of the chief areas that's really informing our work in the rebuild plan and helping lay the foundation for the transformational work still to occur, is the input that we've garnered from industry partners through stakeholder surveys and regional engagement sessions. And it's my great pleasure at this time to turn this portion of our presentation over to Staj Olson. Staj is the project manager for all of our strategic planning work at Travel Oregon. She is both the glue that holds the team and all this information together, as well as the catalyst to keep the proverbial trains all running on time as we move from this mitigation strategy to a rebuild strategy, and eventually to this transformational strategy that we'll be building. So at this time, it's my pleasure to turn this over to Staj.
Well, thank you, Todd, and good morning, commissioners. Thank you all for allowing me to join and share some information. Again, my name is Staj Olson, and head up all of our strategic planning efforts, as Todd shared. Next slide, Todd. So as many of you know, we've already shared a lot about these numbers, but did just want to dive back into them a little bit as they're so important for where we are in the rebuild plan, and these will also be used for the transformational planning. So we surveyed the industry back in October of last year. This was open for several weeks. We had over 1,200 valid responses collected across all the regions, with the majority of those responses coming from DMOs, lodging, retail attractions, and restaurants. And I would be remiss to not thank the regions. All 7 of our DMOs were instrumental in getting this out to all of our constituents, and to our team members, and specifically LaDan, Harry, and Kate for all of their work on not only this survey, but the engagement sessions, which I'll also be sharing a little bit about. So what you can see here from this stakeholder survey is that Portland, as one of our primary regions in terms of receiving revenue and funding for the state and taxes, was really impacted disproportionately by COVID at the time that we hosted this survey. And you can see, in the data that we have on our dashboards and whatnot, on our industry site, that Portland continues to be the most impacted region. So actually for this first quarter, from January to March 21, looking year over year at the first quarter of last year, the STR data indicates that the total room revenue for Portland is down 44%, with every other region for this year over year first quarter is in the black, performing up anywhere from 1 to 55%. Next slide. So again, looking at the business health in that survey, we found that 46% of respondents reported that their business or organization had laid off or let go of employees in 2020. So we saw a large bulk of that occurring between April and June of 2020. And then again, at the time of the survey, we saw a 14% anticipated that they would be doing those layoffs in November of 2020 through April of 2021. So hopefully what this means is that we've seen the bulk of the layoffs in our industry occur just this past month, and that employment will now be steadily increasing. And we have seen that take place from the Oregon Employment Department numbers. And again, all this information is available on our industry site on our barometer. So you can see that employment data there if you're interested. So over half of the respondents characterized the impacts of COVID on their organization's revenue and funding as being significant. And in comparison, we actually only saw 17% describe the 2020 wildfires as having that significant negative impact. So we were able to, with this survey, kind of compare a little bit of the wildfire impacts versus the COVID, which that was also very helpful. So looking at recovery and reopening, we saw that 37% of respondents were not at all concerned about promoting their community and felt it would benefit from visitors, while 24% expressed some or significant concern. We did find that the respondents felt that the biggest concern when welcoming visitors to their community was really that diminished visitor experience at the destination due to facility and amenity closures, fewer frontline workers, and so on. We could see that a large margin of respondents did say that helping advocate for effective policies and funding to support businesses and organizations was really the primary resources that businesses needed. Todd spoke to this a couple slides ago, but I did just want to point out again in relation to this first bullet that the recent destination analysts report for the month of March that we did recently obtain has indicated that more than half of Oregon residents are either neutral or disagree, strongly disagree now with the statement that I do not want travelers coming to visit my community right now. So what this means is that we're actually seeing a positive increase in resident sentiment for their communities. And additionally, we're seeing a large portion either neutral or happy and very happy to see an ad promoting their community. So again, this is a very positive trend that we're seeing for communities in supporting the reopening of the industry. Okay, next slide. We were able to ask some questions for the first time really about, well, not only demographics of our industry, but we also looked at our industry's readiness in the diversity, equity, and inclusion realm. So 44% of residents did not believe that Travel Oregon should play a role in advancing social and racial justice, while 22%, oh, sorry, I apologize. 44 said that the tourism industry should play a role, while 22% did not think the industry should play a role, and 23 was unsure. It's a pretty large number. 61% did report having received training in the DEI area. So that was really positive. And a lot of people very interested in having more training. We also saw that nearly 9 in 10 Oregon residents felt somewhat or very prepared to interact with visitors, clients, and coworkers of diverse ethnic, racial, and cultural backgrounds. So again, just wanted to point out that we believe these are very positive numbers in regards to our industry being well trained in these areas and having strong competencies in supporting visitors and clients from diverse backgrounds. Okay, next slide, Todd. Thank you. So building from the stakeholder surveys, we were able to host a series of stakeholder engagement sessions. And these happened in 6 of the 7 regions. These just wrapped up in the month of March. We had over 340 attendees all combined of all of these across the state. So the primary purpose of these sessions was for the RDMOs to share their draft strategic plans with the regional stakeholders to get their feedback on those key tactics and investments in their draft plans. And we also use these as an opportunity to walk the tourism through this 2-phase planning approach and our efforts to lead with a racial equity lens, which you've just heard Todd speak to earlier. So with these sessions, we were able to ask a series of polling questions related to these updates. And we were able to also validate the learnings from the stakeholder survey or to see if the priorities had shifted. So I'll just go through these very quickly. Next slide, Todd. So you can see that there was a very strong agreement for Travel Oregon to play a role in closing the racial economic wealth gap. And oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Wanted to just point out, you saw on the slide previously, Todd, if you don't mind switching back really quick. But you can see there was very strong agreement across the industry for rethinking and doing this transformational planning. Okay, jump 2 slides ahead. And so in these sessions, you could see that, again, the survey data was really validated and across the regions, most of the reasons that they had indicated earlier were still fairly accurate. And so the top concerns for welcoming visitors to communities really continues to be around overburdened public resources and the diminished visitor experience due to closures. Next slide. Tourism businesses and organizations, again, their primary need still is helping advocate for effective policies and funding to support them, and additionally tools and trainings to support communications and marketing. Okay, and next slide. And you can see really to help the communities as a whole in rebuilding was support the development of visitor experiences and land stewardship strategies to primarily support outdoor recreation experiences and access. Okay, with all of that great information from our stakeholders, again, thank everyone who participated in those. It was very helpful. We will be doing much more of these as we go into the transformational planning, and I'll have an opportunity to share about that a little bit more later. So thank you, and back to you, Todd.
All right, Stodge, thank you. You have been a stalwart in corralling all of this information, working with our industry partners, working with the staff team in our contractor Destination Think on bringing us to this point of having a rebuild plan that's ready for the commission's consideration and to lay the foundation for what will eventually become the transformational plan. So Stodge, appreciate you and all your work and all the work still to come, as we know. You know, as we look at the rebuild plan, I think it's important to acknowledge right from the get-go what the objectives are of this plan. I've referred to this plan as a bridge plan, and that's truly what it is. It's taking us from where we've been mitigating the impacts of the pandemic to where we see an opportunity to really transform the travel and tourism industry. But during this time, there's work that needs to be done to really rebuild and restore the travel and tourism industry in Oregon. So we want to continue to support the industry's rebuild from COVID-19. We're well aware of the action the commission took back at their February commission meeting when we revised our revenue forecast for this current fiscal year from $16 million to $20 million and pushed much of that resource directly into enhancing the grant program, into a regional recovery and sustainability program, into enhancing the Destination Ready program. It really is about rebuilding the industry and making sure that many of the infrastructure needs and other needs that were identified in the stakeholder survey and regional engagement work that Stodge just covered was being addressed through these resources from Travel Oregon, and really creating the opportunity to invest in these innovative ideas that were coming up from our local and regional partners and private businesses throughout the state of Oregon. The second objective, of course, is building that transformational strategic plan for the future. This is all about providing us, the rebuild plan is providing us with the running room that we need to deal with the uncertainties of this current era that we are living in. So the imperatives have been modified. As commissioners who are familiar with our previous strategic planning work, you're familiar with the imperatives 2 through 5 that you see here on the screen. But leading with a racial equity lens has to be specifically called out as an imperative. We believe that this is necessary. We believe this is important. We believe it's right to make sure that we are leading with a racial equity lens. This is how we're going to ensure that Oregon becomes a destination that is welcoming to all, where all Oregonians are benefiting from our work in having a vital and vibrant travel and tourism industry. We're also going to continue focusing on rebuilding the statewide economic impact, supporting and empowering Oregon's tourism industry. We've spoken for years, if not decades, that this isn't about the state tourism office. It's about us as an industry and this ecosystem that is the destination management organizations at the state, regional, and local level, and the private businesses, organizations, and the like that make up the fabric of the travel and tourism industry in Oregon. We want to continue to champion the value of tourism, making sure that residents and elected officials and others all understand and appreciate and value the role that the tourism industry plays, and to continue to run as an effective business on behalf of the tourism industry. During this rebuild phase, we see the KPIs, our key performance indicators, also evolving. Of course, chief amongst them will be that new transformational strategy and organizational design to be brought before the commission in early 2022. But we also are going to be tracking, measuring, and evaluating regional and statewide resident sentiment, that level of welcome, as well as visitor sentiment, their level of satisfaction with their experience in Oregon. And we're going to be tracking the rate of recovery as a % change of visitor spending in each region, as well as at the statewide level. Working off those KPIs, then, the desired outcomes that we're seeking are very straightforward. First and foremost, that a racial equity lens is being applied to all of our work, to making sure that we're advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion across the state of Oregon. We're going to work to ensure that the tourism industry remains that viable contributor to the state's economy and track the rate of recovery, that percent increase that I alluded to earlier as a KPI, that rate of recovery of visitor spending statewide is equitable across all regions and is also greater than Oregon's competitive set. We want to make sure that visitors continue to follow public health and safety regulations. We know this is part of the uncertainty. We know that there are, based on the research I saw earlier this week, that 30% of US travelers say that COVID is still influencing their travel planning behavior. So we want to make sure that our visitors are continuing to follow public health and safety regulations and respecting the communities, the cultures, and these places that make up Oregon. We want to make sure that Oregon's destinations and outdoor places are stewarded and sustained for a resilient future. And we want the full engagement of the staff and the commission and the tourism industry as we undertake this transformational planning process. So the key actions for each of these imperatives, and I'm not going to go through all of these because you as commissioners, as well as those that are tuned in today, this has been posted to our website now for a couple of weeks. It will remain available for public comment through May the 18th, and the commission will take this up at their June commission meeting for actual consideration, review, and adoption. But I do want to hit on a couple of key actions within each of these imperatives. In the area of leading with a racial equity lens, our ability to assess our recruitment, our promotion, and our contracting policies, procedures, and practices with a racial equity lens so that we're able to identify and implement strategies to eliminate barriers is of the utmost importance to us. We want to engage Oregon's tourism industry with a commitment to racial equity, and by extension, Oregon residents as well. And we're going to conduct outreach and build partnerships to explore development of educational and career opportunities for underrepresented talent in the tourism industry. In the area of making sure that we're rebuilding statewide economic impact, you'll hear more a little later today on our movement forward on executing targeted advertising campaigns, on our ability to drive awareness of Oregon as a destination in those key global markets. Many of you likely recall how prior to COVID, international visitors were contributing roughly $1 out of every $8 that were being spent in Oregon. Obviously, that's been significantly impacted with the loss of that overseas air service. But we are hearing positive signs from Canada. We heard a positive announcement from Delta just a couple of weeks ago, beginning new nonstop air service to Incheon in Korea in September of this year. We're hopeful to see the return of European air service and additional air service to Asia as well. So driving awareness of Oregon as a destination has been something we've been doing during the mitigation phase and must continue during the rebuild phase. We want to generate business and product development opportunities. We want to make sure that we're rebuilding local tourism economies and ensuring the industry's resilience from the local level all the way through to the state level. And making sure that we're continuing to inform visitors on public health regulations and responsible outdoor recreation practices. Part of rebuilding the statewide economic impact is ensuring its resiliency. And a way to ensure resiliency in a post-pandemic era is to make sure that we've informed visitors on those public health regulations and making sure that we're responsible in our outdoor recreation practices. In supporting and empowering Oregon's tourism industry, we're going to focus on visitor management initiatives that address the pressures that are resulting from visitation. This is part of our responsibility, part of our obligation. as a destination management organization. We're going to partner and support public resource management agencies at the federal, the state, and the local level with an emphasis on outdoor recreation and wildfire prevention. And we want to make sure that we're establishing and fostering relationships and trust with Oregon's Confederated Tribes. In the area of championing the value of tourism, during this rebuild phase, we want to make sure that we're providing perspectives on policies, programming, and funding that will impact Oregon's tourism industry's future. We want to make sure that we're empowering and equipping Oregon's tourism industry with power of travel and issue-oriented messages, and that we're creating an awareness and improving the perception around the industry among residents and policymakers. And in the area of running an effective business, we will continue to monitor and adapt budgets and strategies to be responsive to the changing environment. And we'll be sure to engage the Travel Oregon team, you as commissioners, and our industry in creating a shared vision and approach, including the redesigning of the organization and assessing existing business processes to carry forward for the transformational plan. To undertake this, we're proposing this 2021-2023 biennial budget. The state lodging tax revenue that you see here is the planning forecast that Tourism Economics provided us at our February commission meeting, which the commission adopted as a planning estimate. As Commissioner Francisco alluded to earlier in the financial update, we had revised our revenue forecast for this current fiscal year from 16 million to 20 million. Well, we're currently at 20.6 million with one additional deposit still to come in early June. So it's quite probable, I will say it will occur that we will be revising this revenue forecast as we come to the June commission meeting. And we will bring forward a revised budget and plan for your consideration at that time. So this plan and this budget is built using this estimate, which is what we believed was reasonable and appropriate in February of this year. Other sources that are cited here include revenue from the governor's conferences that will occur in 2022 and 23, interest income, Welcome Center brochure program, other sources of revenue. We're also proposing transferring $491,000 from our operating reserve. I want to assure commissioners that we are still retaining our 5% reserve fund policy, that we keep at least 5% of our annual budget in reserves. And so we can draw down this amount of money and still retain that 5% level in our operating reserve. So the total biennial budget that's being proposed at this time is $62,564,000. The breakouts are as you see them then described below. This represents comparing the 21-23 biennial budget to the 2019-21 revised budget. Remember, we did make revisions based upon the forecasted impacts of COVID-19 as not only in June of 2020, but also again in February of this year. So comparing 2019-21 to 2021-23, destination development is increased roughly 34%, global strategic partnerships, roughly 22%, global marketing, roughly 18%, global sales, 17%, administration and operations, approximately 6%. So with that, commissioners, that concludes my overview this morning. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time. Again, also happy to entertain questions that you may have as you're continuing to review the plan, even after this meeting, between now and when we gather on June the 15th. And again, this will be open for public comment through May the 18th. That is all available on our industry website. So any of our industry partners are able to go and provide a comment through that form on our industry website as well. So with that, commissioners, I will open it up for any questions that you may have at this time.
Todd? So,
Kenji, I'm going to interrupt for just a moment.
Sure.
May I wait to open a public hearing, Todd, or would you like that done in advance of questions and discussion?
Chair Youngblood, if either way is certainly appropriate. So if you'd like to go ahead and open the public hearing, why don't we do that? And that may either answer some questions or possibly spur some additional questions. So why don't we go ahead with the public hearing portion at this time, and then we can open it for questions and answers from the members of the commission.
Okay, and I mean, just, for the sake of the formality, commissioners, I'll restate a couple of things that Todd already mentioned. I'm going to open the public hearing on our draft 21 through 23 strategic plan and budget. As noted earlier, on Monday, the 26th of April, the meeting notice was posted to the commission meetings webpage and announced in the industry e-news. This included the agenda, the draft strategic rebuilding plan and budget, the public comment form and instructions, and a link to this live stream. And for the record, there were no requests for live public testimony on the draft strategic plan and budget during today's meeting, but we would like to take the opportunity to remind industry partners, as Todd just did, those of you watching, the public comment phase for the plan remains open via the Travel Oregon Industry website through May 18th, should you like to submit written comment. And with that, I can close the public hearing on the strategic plan. Commissioners, Todd has kept us appraised of the budget position from the time COVID-19 started. And while there are still many challenges facing Oregon and our industry, given the financial reports received today and the optimism found in this strategic plan, we're hopeful that the economic recovery is going to be felt across the state sooner than later. Again, no action is needed today regarding the plan and budget. As noted, once the public comment phase is ended on May 18th, staff will evaluate and provide necessary recommendations to the plan and budget, and any comments received will be posted to the website and provided to the commission, and the 2021 through 23 strategic plan and budget will appear before you, the commission, during our June 15th meeting for final review and adoption. Sorry for all of that, but I wanted to make sure that all of that context was in place as we began this discussion. Kenji, I'm very sorry to interrupt, sir.
Oh, no worries. I think one point of order we should do is for the comments and questions, there's the little raise hand thing in the along the bottom of the Zoom thing, and it might be good to utilize those. And as chair, you should monitor it, by the way. But getting to the question and comment, I just want to first say the emphasis on DEI is truly appreciated. As a member of AAPI, I think it's a very, very important undertaking, and appreciate the thoughtfulness and the thought that went into it, and making part of that strategic plan makes it it makes me feel really good that our communities are valued. So thank you on that. The question I had was, are we ready for travel coming back in a greater amount than we expect? Because there's a lot of pent up demand and a lot of money in the economy right now. And in helping communities prepare for that big wave of people, you mentioned visitor management initiatives. And do you have any examples that you can let the commissioners know about? And the other thing too, in terms of the visitor management, are we keeping our databases up to date, especially because there's been so many closures? If somebody comes out to some of our destinations, we want to make sure that they have the most up-to-date information so they don't show up somewhere and it's closed. So those are my two main questions. Thank you.
Kenji, thank you for that. And let me just acknowledge again your comments regarding the DEI initiative. It's as was stated earlier, it's the right thing to do. And we want everyone who travels within Oregon. We want all Oregon residents and all of our visitors to know that they are welcome and valued and respected here. And our work as an agency is still very nascent. There's a lot that we have to do. You saw it referenced in our ability to run an effective business, and that there's work that we can do there in our contracting and our recruitment and in other ways. So there's a tremendous amount of work for us to do, and your comments buoy that work and encourage us to continue to move forward and to be even stronger in that space. To your questions about being ready to welcome visitors back, I would say there probably some places that feel more ready than others. I will tell you that the lodging sector generally has felt very ready. They've had the protocols in place, as we've heard referenced in previous meetings, there were no traceable occurrences of COVID-19 back to lodging establishments in the state of Oregon. Restaurants similarly have been embracing the COVID-19 protocols and in ensuring that they can provide their guests with both a safe and memorable experience. Your question, hinted at also kind of a pent-up demand, almost a visitor volume kind of component to it in terms of readiness to proceed. And I will just acknowledge that this is why we developed the Take Care Out There initiative and that messaging, and that's why it's been central to the work that we've been doing over the last several months. Some have wondered, well, if you're not advertising, what are you doing in that space? Well, just because you're not advertising doesn't mean you're not messaging, right? That there's not a message that we're putting out into the marketplace. And that message has been, we know people are traveling. We want to make sure that you're doing it safely, that you have all the information at your disposal, that we're making sure that our databases on traveloregon.com are up to date, that we're making sure that we have all the recent information on where the counties are in their various levels of restriction, what's open, what's not, what's available, what's not, what's indoor, what's out, et cetera, so that we're able to convey that information to help visitors better plan their experiences here in Oregon. And for some of those places in Oregon where the number of visitation, that pressure that can come from increasing visitation has been a challenge, even during the pandemic, we have used, for example, our social media channels to, in essence, geofence parts of Oregon so that we can convey messages that are very TCOT, that Take Care Out There messaging, very TCOT oriented about being respectful of these communities, being responsible in your outdoor recreational experiences and pursuits, and having that appear in only certain parts of the state as visitors that are tuned into Travel Oregon social media channels are entering these areas, be it Crater Lake, the North Coast, Columbia Gorge, et cetera. If they're experiencing those visitation pressures, we're able to help mitigate those as best we can by messaging to those folks who are on our social media channels.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Kenji. I appreciate it. Maria, you had I'm sorry.
I just wanted to thank Kenji for the instruction on the hands. I didn't see those. I'll let you resume.
Okay. Maria, you have a question.
Yes, thank you. It looks wonderful. Thank you for all the hard work on that. I want to just emphasize your point about the campaign of Take Care Out There and the importance of making our places safe, but also clean. And I think that is something that Oregon has always been known for, is being very responsible with our outdoor recreation and making sure that our trails and our rivers and everywhere that people are exploring remain clean and respectful of the land. And so I want to make sure that that stays intact as we move forward, as we see more visitors. It's something that is we've seen in other parts of the world that has kind of not paid as much attention to that component. I think it's very important for our state to keep that as important as even DEI, which obviously is critical. The other piece I wanted to mention was the Portland region, as we know, has really suffered through the pandemic, and we were able to hear from the Portland Visitors Association CEO at our last meeting. I'm just wondering, since that is a hub and obviously visitors do come to Portland as they enter this state, are we as Travel Oregon doing anything in particular to help support that region at this time? Are we getting involved beyond our standard to try to help that DMO, that area?
Right. Maria, that's a great question, and you're spot on that the Portland region in particular has been disproportionately impacted, followed probably by the Willamette Valley region generally that has been impacted, but the Portland region has been the most disproportionately impacted as a result of the pandemic. And we have been paying attention to that. For example, you may have noticed in the most recent Competitive and Recovery Grant Program, which the commission voted to enhance by adding an additional $1 million to the overall grant program, that was just announced and alluded to earlier. There was consideration given by the Grant Review Committee for those regions of the state that have been disproportionately impacted. So that we can, that became part of the entire review process for that grant program. As we look at rolling out our marketing programs and our co-op programs, our team is in very close communication with the team at Travel Portland and the other DMOs within the Portland region to look at how we can aid them specifically in that marketing recovery efforts, and how we can identify co-ops and a collaborative marketing program specific to the Portland region that we could undertake together with them, in addition to the work that we're doing with all the regions as we look to roll out the Welcome to Oregon Again campaign in June of this year. And sometimes it's in the small and simple ways. We've had many members of the Travel Oregon team that have participated in the community cleanups. They've been part of those Solve cleanups and working with Orla, Travel Portland, and Solve and others to continue to keep attention on the cleanup in the Portland community, so that there's a readiness there to welcome visitors back. So Maria, thank you so much for your question as well. Richard?
Thank you, Todd. First of all, I too would like to acknowledge the importance of leading this plan with DEI and all the hard work that's gone into the plan. Importantly, the nature of this plan is a bridge plan. As you noted, the world is very changeable right now, and what our best thinking is today will not be our best thinking in 6 months. I'm absolutely sure of it. So acknowledging that from the beginning, I think, is important. I've got a couple questions for you, one potentially for Staj, and I'll also apologize for any background noise that may come up here again. The best internet connection where I'm at is outside, but it means I don't have control of the environment. So hopefully we don't get a lawnmower or something starting up here soon. As far as the questions go, on page 35 of the commission materials, and I think it was your slide 29, under desired outcomes, there's one that talks about assuring or assisting the industry to be a viable economic contributor to the state's economy. And it went on to talk about that being equitably achieved across regions. And my ask of you is that you would speak a little bit more to both of those ideas, the viability, as well as what equitable across regions means in the context of this plan. Second question for you is about the key actions and how they were developed. I think I saw a significant amount of staff input there, but I'm curious about the process.
I am happy to take first shot at that, and then Stodge, if you have anything that you would like to add to supplement, please do. First of all, to your question, Richard, regarding the desired outcomes and the equitable recovery across regions, I believe is the specific part of that. You know, we realize that the regions may each recover differently. They've all been impacted differently. You heard in some of the earlier comments that Stodge had shared that the Portland region is, you know, for the first quarter of this year, in looking at lodging revenue per STR, still in the red. Other regions have moved to being in the black, some by 1%, some by nearly 50%. So the impacts were not equal, and the recovery has not necessarily been equal as a result. But we take our role as a statewide tourism development entity very seriously. And so our focus needs to be on making sure that that rising tide does raise all ships. It's a little bit akin to Maria's question about the disproportionate impacts that occurred in Portland. And I would also add then subsequently in the Willamette Valley as well. We also know that, you know, Portland is a gateway for our international visitation. And I alluded to earlier that roughly 1 out of every $8 being spent in Oregon prior to the pandemic came from international visitation. And those folks may have been entering through Portland and then headed to Southern Oregon, headed to Eastern Oregon, headed to the coast. And so we know that their role as a vibrant destination and also as a gateway to all that Oregon has to offer, both coexist equally for us. So we just need to make sure, and we're calling ourselves into account here, that making sure that it's equitable. It may not be equal. We understand that, but equitable. Our focus needs to be on each region's recovery as part of that overall statewide plan. So we can do that through investments in our grant programs. We can do that through our investment in co-ops that we develop. We have different levers that we can utilize to help make sure that, again, that rising tide is going to raise all ships. Some of these come with no cost. It can be how we showcase different amenities and regions and communities and the like through our content on traveloregon.com, through our social media channels, and what it is we're able to up-level. It also becomes a great opportunity for us to be able to disperse visitors more widely, both geographically as well as throughout the year. And that becomes part of that equitability as well. And so that's our focus as we're looking at developing these strategies underneath these specific actions, Richard.
So that sounds like the typical Travel Oregon nimbleness and doesn't necessarily indicate a change in spending or focus any more than is typical. Is that an appropriate read of what you just said, Todd?
Well, I think there is likely there could be a change in spending. I mean, as I mentioned, we acknowledged in the last $2.4 million grant program, attending to regions that were disproportionately impacted. That part of that equitability and recovery is being able to make some very intentional shifts in that way. So I do think that you will see some shifting in programming and content and the like to make sure that we're able to encourage that growth and recovery in every region of the state. Staj, did you?
Yes, Richard, I believe the second part of your question, you also asked a little bit about how the key actions were formed. Were you asking a little bit about the team input that we utilized as well, and not just the stakeholder efforts in this?
Yeah, I was really interested in the process generally and how broadly, from how broadly how that language was developed, because language is important, and just how broadly the input was, sought and reviewed.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. I guess I'll try to give you a quick high level snapshot. So a lot of these key action, or not a lot, but some of these key actions have actually been formed for quite some time, right? So we have been in this process of mitigating and, planning for recovery of COVID for, we've been in this kind of juxtaposition for a while. So there's been a lot of building of these for quite some time. There was many efforts across the team, and actually Kristen Dahl, who I was out on maternity leave. And so Kristen Dahl, as a strategic planner and having many years in planning, actually really helped the agency internally do some hard looking at their strategic planning back when COVID first occurred. So there was some considerable effort done then at that point in time across the teams, and bringing everyone together to kind of really look hard at like what needed to be done and what could be done, especially with the reduction in staff and funding. And so then building from that process, we did do a public RFP process to bring in some global thinkers and strategists. So we have acquired the firm Destination Think, who has been supporting us in this effort. And then throughout that process, we have worked with our team, not just the leadership team, but we pull in all the directors and some key managers to really think through, all the actions that we need to take as a team. Kind of what is our standard operating business? What are we required to do? How, do we function? And then also what do we need to do to get even further? And so with that, we've had, multiple planning sessions. We've had the opportunity to bring together a diversity, equity, and inclusion internal task force. We have also acquired some expertise in that area with actually two different contractors. One was named Tamara Kennedy Hill. She used to be with Travel Portland. She has since moved on to help with that effort actually at the Port of Portland, having a full-time position there. And then we've worked with this amazing gentleman named Scott Wynn, which hopefully you all actually have an opportunity to meet soon. And so we were able to dive into specifically some of the racial equity work with various members from all over the agency to really come up with some of these key actions that we need to do in that area. So there's been a lot of thinking, a lot of hands in all of this, and then just really, I guess, explicitly, actually like writing these key actions is really an effort of myself, the communications team, and our key strategists, and then of course our leadership team always has a hand in that as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Staj. Richard, if I may, one other example I'd like to offer to you, where this is a departure from what might be the business as usual approach from Travel Oregon. I mentioned the grant program, considering that disproportionate impact. We also, when we brought forward the recommendation to the commission at the February meeting for the budget modification, proposed the creation of a regional recovery and stabilization fund. We put roughly $1.5 million into that. Some of that money was appropriated to each region. A part of it was basically like this amount of money divided by 7, which is equal. But then we also looked at, for a large part of that resource, we looked at how the regions were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. and we weighted it, what would almost be called an inverse weighting. In other words, if they were more significantly impacted, they received a larger share of that resource. So granted, at the end of the day, every region in Oregon was still receiving less money in this next fiscal year for their regional program than they received this year because of the downturn in the industry overall. But that $1.5 million and the way it was distributed, which was very different from the way we've ever distributed resource in the past, was an effort to be more equitable and look at that disproportionate impact by region.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate the clarification about what equitable meant in that context. It is really as I would expect and as I had seen, but I wanted to hear a little bit more about that. And Staj, thank you for the explanation about how the key actions were developed. They all look like very strong actions for the organization to pursue, and that process that you described gives me that much more confidence in how they were developed, and the broad input I think is I'm happy to see. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Richard. Don.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments and questions that have already been stated. It's more of a comment about the recovery plan and our economic recovery as a tourism industry. Along the lines, I am concerned that we're going to be impacted by the shortage of employees. I mean, we're already we would open our restaurants 7 days a week, but we don't have the employees to do it, and we're not getting the applicants. And so I know it's across the board, and my fear is going into the peak summer that our lack of employees is going to drive, some shortfalls in revenues for our industry.
Don, I think that's an excellent point. We've heard that consistently through the regional engagement sessions that occurred this spring. I know I've heard it from several of you as commissioners when we've either had small group conversations or some one-on-one meetings, and we're hearing it from our state trade associations, the Oregon Restaurant Lodging Association, Oregon Destinations Association, and several of our partners. That workforce is really the issue right now. That shortage of available workforce is impacting hotels' ability to open all of their rooms, restaurants' ability to open all tables, all days, or all meals and the like. So it's called out in the plan as being an element of the rebuild strategy. It's also something that we're working on now internally. We have representatives of 2 or 3 different departments that are working on this with our partners at ODA and the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association as well, to see what we can possibly do to help revitalize that workforce. It's a great question, Don.
Thank you.
Yep. Chair Youngblood, I see your hand up.
Well, I wanted to applaud Don's comment, and it was immediately where my head went when Kenji asked his question about the industry's readiness for a recovery this summer. I mean, we're trying hard to plan for a summer that would be very similar to historic norms, and so the ability to staff up and plan for that investment that we're willing to make right now has been very, very difficult. And I know that this has been part of conversations that I've had separately with Commissioner Boyles and Francisco, and so thank you, Todd, for your commentary, for the agency's responsiveness to it, Dawn for raising the valuable issue, and Kenji for asking the important question.
And Mr. Chairman, I am not seeing any other hands raised at this time, so I will turn it back over to you.
Thank Thank you. Thank you, Todd, and Staj. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was really extraordinary. Again, we'll be receiving more public commentary on the draft strategic plan and budget through May 18th. And then we as a commission will take all of this up again in next month's meeting. We're doing well for time this morning, and so I would like to propose that we take a 5-minute break if you are all amenable. And then when we come back from break, we will begin seeing some staff presentations this morning. All righty. Well, I have 10:20 on Mickey's big hand, so maybe we'll see you right about 10:25 a.m. Pacific, Commissioner Boyles. All right, folks, we will resume here in just another moment. We're going to let all of the commissioners get back online and see if they can get their video restarted. And then, Todd, it's obviously your presentation set to guide at this point, so I'll let you resume when you're ready.
All right, sir. Thank you. All right, commissioners, we'll go ahead and reconvene at this point and pick up the reports, updates, and discussions portion of our agenda. As you've heard me say in the past, as soon as a strategic plan is adopted and put in place, it feels like you immediately move into your next planning phase. In other words, there's a perpetuity to strategic planning, and part of that is born out of the uncertainty of the times that we're currently living in. Part of that is because consumer trends and such continue to change and evolve, why people travel, where they travel, what the planning process looks like, and what role do we want travel and tourism to play in Oregon as a part of the economic fabric that makes up this quality of life of this place that we have the privilege of calling home. So, because you can never have enough conversations around strategic planning, it feels only right that we would come out of talking about the rebuild plan, which we are currently in that public comment period on, and we'll look to adopt at our June commission meeting, but to also look ahead to what the next several months will look like leading us up to the transformational plan. And to lead us in that presentation, it is my great pleasure to turn this segment back over to our internal strategic planning manager, Staj. Staj, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Sorry, let me make sure I'm doing this correctly. There we go. Oops. I think I messed it up. Sorry about that. Let me try this again. Oops. There we go. Do you see the full presentation? Yes? Okay. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, commissioners, for allowing me the opportunity to join you again here. So yes, as Todd spoke to, I mean, we are constantly staying curious. We are, nothing's ever stopped, changing, right? It's constantly evolving. So even in the not unprecedented times of COVID and everything else that the world is going through, we always kind of kick off planning literally when we're finished planning, right? It's a constant evolving door to keep it all moving along. And so as we are kind of wrapping up this rebuild planning, and as Scott Youngblood spoke to, and Todd, of course, we have those public comment option is still open through the 18th. Then we will be reviewing those. We will be reviewing any additional revenue that has come up and kind of marrying that up and looking at, changing any final budget numbers that need to be updated. And then that will go to the final commission review and adoption at the June 15th meeting that will take place right before the governor's conference. And so as this all wraps up, and as we're still working on this rebuild plan, we're also, really kicking off the transformational planning and that two-phase approach that Todd really spoke to. So I did just want to share really quick. You can kind of see the form on the industry site if anyone's interested in providing comments on the current draft plan and budget. You can find that there, and that's what that looks like. And so as we kick off this transformational strategic planning, there will be many opportunities for continued stakeholder engagement, commission engagement, and staff engagement. So I'm just going to walk through a few of those opportunities and the kind of the big picture that will be happening over really the next 6, 7, 8 months. So with this transformational planning, as Todd spoke to, some of the key elements of it that we will be looking at is we will be looking at our business processes internally. We will be looking at our organizational structure, all of this to really support those strategies as we move forward and transform and hopefully, build an even stronger industry and more resilient and more equitable industry as we move forward. So some of these key engagements will really be kicking off right after the plan is adopted. So literally on June 15th, when we have that commission meeting, the next day at the end of the governor's conference, we will have a big stakeholder planning workshop. And this will be run by our strategic planning firm, Destination Think. So I really hope that everyone can attend that. It is a separate registration from governor's conference, but it is later that day. So on the 16th, you can sign up online. We'll be sharing all that information on our industry site and through our e-newsletters and whatnot, as you have probably already seen, but more communications will be coming out about that.
Stodge, if you'll forgive me for interrupting you, your screen share had stopped. If you'd like to reinitiate the screen share. Oh, it happens.
Okay. There we go. Is that correct now? Awesome.
That's great.
So what I was, I don't know why I'm having technical difficulties. I'm sorry. It's not letting me click forward. Anywho, this is really the main slide, so that's fine. As I was speaking about the planning workshop, I was just going to show you the registration page that will be going out in our e-news tomorrow, so that you can see the, so that you can register for that. We will be following up with one-on-one stakeholder interviews with 10 folks from the industry. We will be looking at interviewing commissioners, RDMO representatives, key subsectors of the industry. So just key folks, those will be taking place later this summer. We will be hosting a stakeholder racial equity lens training for all of our RDMOs. All of their staff, the commission members, additional staff at Travel Oregon that weren't able to take it the first time we hosted it last year. And again, key partners from the Oregon Destination Association, Orla, and other players as well that wish to partake in that. So members will be seeing invites come out for that soon as well. We will be doing an interview process of every single one of our staff. So 45 interviews, those have actually already started to take place. So those will be wrapping up in late June. We will also be doing a staff survey to really get into more details and more input and perspectives. Of course, there will be more commission engagement with the fall meeting, which will at that point be combined with stakeholder co-creation labs. We are hoping to do one in every region. So there will be 7 of those. We will also be doing some stakeholder really specific focus groups, working with our tribal communities, BIPOC communities, and again, specifically just with the RDMOs to really have their key insights as they work so closely and in their specific regions. And then to wrap it all up, we will be engaging the staff one more time to really pull everything together and to really build that next plan and budget. And then with that, the hope is that we should be wrapped up and bring that to the commission for review and adoption in early 2022. So with that, I know there's a lot of information and a lot of things coming your way over the next 8 months, and just always continue to ask for representation at these across the commission and all of our partners. Please attend, and please always reach out if you have any questions about any of them. And with that, I will hand it back over to Todd.
All right, thank you, Stodge. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Stodge at this time?
Okay, Great. Thank you, everyone.
Right. Thank
Pleasure
you.
to be here.
All right, commissioners, next up, Sarah Morrissey, who is our Director of Public Affairs and Industry Communications, is going to provide us with an update on the current legislative session. Sarah, thanks for joining us this morning and for bringing your report.
Hi, good morning. And I am going to work to share this. So can everyone see just the main slide? Okay, great. So good morning, commissioners. My name is Sarah Morrissey. I am Travel Oregon's Director of Public Affairs and Industry Communications. And this morning, I'm going to provide you with an overview of federal and state public affairs updates that have occurred since we last met in February. So starting off on the federal level, the American Recovery Plan. So this past March, President Biden signed the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan Act that I'll refer to as ARPA into law. So this is a stimulus package that provides industry-specific funding for small businesses, many of which are within the tourism industry. And I'm going to provide a short overview of some of those programs. I'm also going to note that we have been communicating these resources out to partners through our industry website, COVID-19 Toolkit, our weekly industry newsletter, and through LinkedIn and Twitter. So starting with the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, this fund provides $28.6 billion in grants to certain eligible restaurants and other food and drinking establishments. In the first 24 hours of opening, 186,000 restaurants, bars, and other eligible businesses across the U.S. applied for relief. Approximately 52% of the applications came through restaurants, bars, and other eligible businesses owned and controlled by women, veterans, and socially or economically disadvantaged individuals. 61,000 applications came from businesses with under $500,000 in annual pre-pandemic revenue, representing some of the smallest restaurants and bars in America. This week, the first $2 billion of the fund is being distributed to 16,000 approved applications, and some were funded as early as last night. We thank Congressman Blumenauer for his work on the Restaurants Act, which helped inspire and inform the development of the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Next, I'll touch on the EDA grant. So Travel Oregon has been working in partnership with U.S. Travel to advocate that a certain amount of EDA funds be specifically available for tourism-related purposes. We're excited to share that not only does ARPA contain $3 billion in supplemental funding for EDA, which is twice the amount of EDA funding included in the CARES Act, but that the bill language directs that 25% of the funds shall be allocated to states and communities that have suffered economic injury as a result of job and gross domestic product losses in the travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation sectors. We're grateful to Congressman DeFazio for making strong comments in support of including travel promotion in the EDA guidelines during markup. EDA guidance determining how this funding can be used is still under development. Travel Oregon is meeting with regional EDA representatives in partnership with the state's Office of Outdoor Recreation and Oregon Parks and Recreation Department later this week to discuss project concepts. And then we have some state funding. So ARPA is sending $2.6 billion to the state of Oregon for federal fiscal recovery funds that will cover state program and service costs. The budget co-chairs at the legislature are intending to reserve 20% of these funds because they can be used through 2024. Guidance on the use of these funds was posted yesterday, and as the state May revenue forecast is going to be released later this week, and the bill posting deadline coming up of May 14th, the legislature is expected to pick up budget discussions, including expenditure of ARPA funds next week. Larger cities and counties across the state will also receive ARPA funds, with cities like Portland receiving approximately $200 million, Beaverton 17 million, and so on. The list goes on. Then we have the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So this is an additional $15 billion for the targeted EIDL Advance Program. This provides grants of up to $10,000 to small businesses located in low-income communities that have no more than 300 employees and have suffered an economic loss of more than 30%. And finally, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program. While the Federal CARES Act originally appropriated $15 billion to fund the SVP, ARPA provides another $1.25 billion in funding, of which $500,000 is reserved for providing program applicants with technical assistance. And then we had Destination Capitol Hill on March 17th. And this is an effort with US Travel. They organized this virtual hill. Travel Oregon and partners met with all Oregon's congressional offices, and we had the opportunity to share how the last year has been economically devastating on the tourism industry and requested support for actions to be taken to provide resources for businesses and rebuild the industry. We were joined by Chair Youngblood and Commissioner Boyles, along with our industry partners from the Willamette Valley Visitors Association, Travel Lane County, Travel Portland, Travel Southern Oregon, the Mount Hood Gorge Territory, Port of Portland, and the Oregon Destination Association. Roger Dow, the president and CEO of US Travel, joined us on our first meeting of the day with Senator Wyden. And here we'll do a little bit of where's Waldo, if you can spot the senator, the congressman, and where you are in the photo. Our participation numbers were really strong this year, and so we really wanted to thank everyone who participated. Our congressional delegation was highly engaged. Staff asked questions. We had multiple email follow-ups, and we were really able to show up and advocate for the industry at a federal level. We asked for the following actions. So we thanked the House members who had just passed the Paycheck Protection Program Extension Act and asked our senators to support it as well. That successfully passed and the PPP was extended. We asked for support on the Hospitality and Commerce Job Recovery Act. This is a bipartisan bill that really provides temporary refundable tax credits to drive travel demand on both the business and leisure side. The legislation has the potential to add 1.5 million jobs and $600 billion in economic output. It continues to be active and is still in conversation in both the House and Senate. And we shared the importance of Brand USA and the need to secure funding outside of the SFE, especially for these next few years. We also spoke about the importance of supporting US Travel and their development of guidance around professional meetings and events using science-based data. And before moving on to my next area of focus, I just want to take the opportunity to thank Sarah Watson for really helping with the organization of both people and content. Next, I just want to share some of the updates that we've been working on the state level. So the Joint Ways and Means Committee met on April 30th. The Legislative Fiscal Office had presented their biennial report on semi-independent agencies. At that meeting, LFO noted that all agencies, including Travel Oregon, were in compliance and they don't have any material issues or concerns. Ways and Means was really glad to hear that. And there were no comments made at that committee meeting. Then on April 12th, we had the House Special Committee on Wildfire Recovery. Travel Oregon was asked to present alongside Oregon Parks and Recreation, Business Oregon, and the Department of Land Conservation and Development on programming that can provide resources to wildfire impacted communities and businesses. This has now developed into a legislature guide that they're hoping provides resources for fire affected communities to learn about state programs that can be helpful. And Travel Oregon continues to engage in these conversations at both the state level as well as the local level through RDMOs and local communities like Detroit Lake and Molalla. We also had a meeting with the governor's office on April 12th. We met with both Travel Oregon staff and Chair Youngblood, Vice Chair Francisco, Commissioner Boyles, and Commissioner Anway. And we met with Leah Horner, who's the governor's job and economic policy advisor, to discuss setting the launch date of the next marketing campaign. We had a very frank and honest and direct conversation and ended with the decision of launching the campaign on May 10th. However, due to increased case rates and counties being recategorized as either high or extreme risk across the state, subsequent conversations led to a campaign launch date being pushed until June 1st. We're confident in the June 1st date, at which time we'll ask Oregonians to support their fellow Oregonians in the tourism industry and really wanting to focus on improving recovery by vacationing in Oregon this summer. Kevin will provide more details around that approach later today, but we're excited to have the opportunity to be back in market and on the road to recovery. And finally, just a quick update on a program that the Department of Revenue has launched. Back in 2017, the legislature passed House Bill 2400, which provided the Department of Revenue with the authority to enter into intergovernmental agreements with local governments like cities and counties to administer their local lodging tax program. So the program would allow for a combined collection of state and local lodging taxes on a single return and includes filing, enforcement, auditing, and other administrative capabilities. The state's hopeful that this program can help with compliance, especially around short-term rental tax as some of the smaller jurisdictions have challenged with that collecting that tax revenue. And while active, there have been some glitches in the process. For example, some city ordinances directed that only the city could collect on its behalf. And so they'd have to reopen the ordinance and change it to include the state. So DOR is working to address those issues, and they're hoping to have that program fully launched for implementation this upcoming summer. And finally, I'll just touch on legislative updates. As expected, the 82nd session of the legislature has been challenging due to limited visibility and access to the Capitol due to the pandemic. All public hearings and work sessions have been virtual, and as you've read in the news, there have been multiple times in which a House floor vote has been pushed back due to COVID cases at the Capitol. The session is scheduled to end on June 27th. And while Travel Oregon did not actively pursue any legislative concepts or bills in this session, there were some that were introduced and were related to the state transient lodging tax, not by Travel Oregon, but by other interested parties. As I've shared before, the governor's office really does not believe that it's the right time to increase the state TLT on the lodging industry, as they have been disproportionately impacted through the pandemic. And they believe that Travel Oregon is the right steward to really distribute those funds for recovery efforts. And we're happy to report today that at this time, these bills are no longer moving forward due to lack of support. And what is shown on this slide are just some of the bills that continue to be active that we are monitoring. The majority of which are priority 2 bills that may impact partner projects and programming that align with agency mission and programming. We have submitted letters of support for various of these concepts, which are noted by the asterisk. Really on this slide, the first one is the priority 1 bill that continues to be active, and that's requiring TLT collection to provide an invoice, receipt, or other similar documents to explain really the full sum of transient lodging taxes charged. The goal is to really increase transparency of tax collection versus fees, especially with intermediaries and booking platforms like Expedia. And then under the priority 2, really a lot of these are focused on programs like the Willamette Falls Locks Authority, providing public creating a public corporation will allow for the transfer of locks into that entity, which then allows for the development of that asset, which we think will be a huge tourism draw in the future. The Office of Emergency Management, we've been working in partnership with them. This is to set up a search and rescue card. And once that card would be established, we would also be a partner in promoting that. House Bill 3031 is incentivizing film projects to have a written DEI policy, very much in line with our proposed strategic plan. And we're very much committed to supporting this effort. And then Senate Bill 43, extending the sunset for film production. So basically the tax credit expires 2024. This extended to 2030, and this will allow for future projects to book with certainty. And finally, I think just on this slide, a lot of focus on outdoor recreation, especially the removal of the sunset of the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund and the commitment of $1 million from the general fund monies for the program. Also, vehicle electric charging stations aligns with kind of our focus on sustainability. Establishing Crater Lake National Park Day as May 22nd, which is quickly approaching, and increasing the amount of tax credits for Oregon film from $14 million to $20 million a year to have more funding to attract film projects to the state, as we definitely see that economic driver behind that, as we've all been watching Top Chef these past few weeks. So with that, I just want to share that, this session, we've really been focused on communicating this information to internal staff, RDMO partners, and the commission via weekly updates and bill reports. We are hopeful that this increased communication helps provide transparency and timely updates to our industry partners so they can track what's happening in session. And if there is a need to advocate or move quickly, everyone's been informed and has been brought along in the process. And I thank you for your time this morning and happy to answer any questions.
Great work, Sarah, and great report. Thank you so much. Commissioners, questions at this time? Chair Youngblood.
Not a question, just Sarah, I have to applaud. You've had an incredibly busy season these past 14 months, and the level of communication and the level of leadership that you continue to bring to not only the agency, but to those of us on the commission to remain engaged and aware of what's going on at a state and federal level. I am constantly amazed and appreciative for what you do and the manner in which you do it. So just merely thank you.
You're here. Thanks. Kenji.
Yeah, so Sarah, great presentation. I appreciate it a lot. And I especially enjoyed the part about the supporting the film and television industry. So thank you on that. I did have a question for you. I think it was on your first slide. It was mentioned EDA. What does EDA stand for?
So it's the Economic Development Administration.
Oh, okay. Okay. So they would be
the federal.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I was unsure what that meant. So I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
No problem. I think I can spell full sentences in acronyms. So we can once we can all meet again in person, that'd be a fun challenge.
Commissioners, any other questions? I don't see any hands up. All right, Sarah, thank you again very much. Commissioners, it is now my pleasure to provide an advertising update, and to do so, I'm going to turn this portion over to Kevin Wright, who's our VP of Global Marketing, and he'll share with us a little bit of our implementation strategies based on what's occurring with COVID, our conversations with the governor's office, as well as our future direction of our marketing campaign. So Kevin, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Todd. Good morning, commissioners. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to share this presentation today. When you start to think about our 16-month hiatus from inspirational advertising, while we've been, as Todd had mentioned, putting a lot of messaging out there based on the needs, we have not been putting out that inspirational messaging that we're known for. So we're excited to get back into that. So with that, I'll hop in to this update. So for the past year, we've been working closely with the governor's office, OHA, OHSU, and other state agencies on 3 core messaging pillars: public safety, business resiliency, and stewardship. While it's been super important for Travel Oregon to provide this information, we know this type of messaging is not as effective at driving demand. During this time, Oregon's advertising share voice among our competitive set has decreased from 10% to 1%. And while some areas of the state are doing well, overall visitor spending in Oregon declined almost 50% in 2020 from $12.8 billion to $6.5 billion, and lodging revenue dipped more than 48% from March 2020 to March 2021. Building back statewide demand isn't done with the flip of a switch. It's going to take time, or an ad campaign. It's going to take time, but we are excited to take this significant first step. Our advertising approach this year will be executed in 2 phases. Phase 1, Welcome to Oregon, is intended to give Oregonians permission to travel and provide information about safety and responsible recreation. Phase 2, Oregon, Only Slightly Exaggerated, designed to reach a broader geographic audience, sustaining Oregon's economic recovery through the fall and the winter months. Both campaigns are designed to drive travel to every corner of Oregon. When I presented this back in December, the plan was to launch both of these campaigns together. However, due to the increase in COVID caseloads that Sarah was mentioning, forced us to push our start for these campaigns back a little bit. And by doing that, we determined that it made more sense to decouple these pulses. As I mentioned, they're supposed to be back to back, but we didn't want to have our advertising blend into the peak summer months. So this will enable us to get the permission to travel again message out in front of the summer months, and then reintroduce Slightly Exaggerated, the new chapter, in the fall. Welcome to Oregon again. This was created in response to a moment that is approaching, the moment when we can inspire travel again. The campaign is designed to inspire Oregonians to travel in their own backyards. Some of you were in the April meeting with the governor's office, where we discussed the difficult position we're in right now. balancing Oregon's economic recovery while also prioritizing the safety and well-being of Oregonians. Acknowledging this challenge, we developed a marketing plan that addresses both economic recovery and public safety. It's flexible, allowing us to modify as needed. While the global pandemic hasn't stopped us from moving, it hasn't stopped us from dreaming of the day when we can travel. We want to tap into that feeling with a message that will inspire Oregonians to explore their state. Our advertising approach is guided by 3 insights. Close to home. This summer, travelers will prioritize car trips and spend more on domestic travel than in previous years. We want Oregonians to think of Oregon before traveling to other state destinations. Community pride. As we move toward recovery, this will be about helping our communities rebuild what we've lost by being intentional about where we travel and where we spend our money. Brand awareness. We need to leverage Travel Oregon's brand strength as a trusted source of information Oregonians seek out when they travel. In our last meeting with the governor's office, we reached consensus that it's in the state's best interest to move forward with the Welcome to Oregon Again campaign. Due to the recent spike in COVID cases, we decided to hold the launch till June 1, when modeling predicts the surge to flatten. This campaign will target our active adventure audience in Oregon. Leading up to this campaign, we've also been working with our media team to better align this custom audience profile with the BIPOC composition of Oregon. We're also finding new channels that reach the LGBTQ market, including a partnership with Coin to support Pride Month in June. Our media objective is to inspire active adventurers in Oregon to travel safely, respectfully, and support local business. This is guided by 2 strategic pillars. Through broad awareness media outlets, we will reinforce Travel Oregon's brand as a trusted resource for travel information. The call to action will drive our audience to traveloregon.com and other owned channels where we'll provide updated information to make safe travel decisions before and during travel. Our own channels will have information and engaging content to drive messages of safety, responsible recreation, and support for local businesses. Based on recent conversation with the governor's office and OHA, a key message under our safety pillar moving forward will be including information about being vaccinated to travel safely. This campaign will drive consumers to Travel Oregon owned channels, including social media and traveloregon.com. The Welcome to Oregon Again landing page on TO.com will have inspirational trip planning content and compelling resources for responsible recreation and safe travel during COVID-19. Here we'll showcase stories informing consumers of what to expect while traveling during COVID-19 in Oregon's outdoors and visiting lodging and dining properties. In alignment with our pillar of stewardship, we will also have content on what to know about wildfire impacted areas in Oregon and fire safety as we move into the summer months. We will also be running geo-targeted ads that provide responsible recreation messaging around specific destinations like Multnomah Falls, the North Coast, Crater Lake, Smith Rock, and other locations. We'll be working with land management agencies and our regional partners to deliver targeted ads that encourage responsible recreation during key visitation times. On traveloregon.com, we'll feature inspirational regional content, driving exploration to those lesser known locations. Here are a couple of examples of top 10 stories. One of these will be produced for each of the 7 regions. We'll also utilize the flexibility of social media to share deeper information content, keeping consumers up to date with current regulations and how they can visit Oregon's many small businesses. Social content will drive to traveloregon.com, where people can find up-to-date community and county and community specific travel information. We'll also incorporate Spanish language versions to keep of key advertising assets and content from traveloregon.com. Community management will be imperative during this period of recovery. There are lots of questions, and we want our social community to have the confidence in planning a trip within Oregon while making informed travel decisions that best suit their individual needs as well as the needs of the community. What you're looking at here is the Take Care Out There Instagram guide we launched last month. It provides resources to explore Oregon safely and responsibly. We'll be creating additional guides, including a beginner's guide to each of Oregon's 7 regions, Oregon's food trails, and Oregon road trips. Through this campaign, Travel Oregon is supporting our regional partners by offering a direct investment co-op with 3 online travel agency partners. Each region will receive $70,000 to spend with Kayak, Priceline, and OpenTable, driving traffic back to their regional sites. Regional partners can determine their target audience, utilize their own creative, and calls to action. Through these OTAs, we're able to reach a huge network of travel intenders, exposing them to regional partner creative and messaging. Beyond bookings, this program delivers regional itineraries, custom influencer content, promotion, and more. And to speak to Maria Ponzi's, Commissioner Ponzi's question about Travel Portland, yeah, we've been working a lot with them since the beginning. As we've talked about them being disproportionately impacted by the events of the last year, we've been working closely with their team on their marketing recovery programs. Some of this includes our support of Travel Portland's bid for the 18th season of Top Chef, broadening the effort to include 4 other regions in filming and verbal mentions from all 7 regions. We're able to expand Travel Portland's media buy, resulting in foodie heat maps on eater.com, driving business directly to locations featured in the broadcast statewide. We've also been able to share our media team at Wine & Kennedy to support Travel Portland with their media buys and assure they are aligned and enhance our upcoming campaign. We've also looked for creative ways to call out the Portland region of both Welcome to Oregon Again and the Only Slightly Exaggerated campaign, as Portland's recovery is critical to Oregon's tourism recovery. Next, I'll walk you through phase 2 of our advertising approach. Can you handle phase 2? Are we ready for phase 2? As I mentioned, Only Slightly Exaggerated is a longer phase, a broader reach designed to sustain our economic recovery throughout the fall and winter. We know we can expect a dip in travel intent beginning in September. By being in market at this time, we will extend travel demand as we enter the shoulder season. We've incorporated a few images you'll see throughout these next few slides. Just please note that these are all still very much work in progress. They're not final renderings. As Ranger Melissa reminded us back in December, Only Slightly Exaggerated taps into a powerful truth. Oregon is an incredibly special place that is difficult to capture in words or pictures. The response to this creative has driven record engagement to Travel Oregon channels and resonated with fans worldwide. We know this is the right campaign to support our COVID economic recovery, but we can't just create the same work again. We had to look at OSE through a new lens. Our first 2 runs at Only Slightly Exaggerated captured the emotional experience of visiting Oregon, the intangible energy and emotions that can't be captured in photos or film. So we created fantastical creatures and characters that brought the different regions to life and filled them with Oregon's magic. Because nature has always been the focus, we missed a big part of Oregon's story. So this time we'll focus on Oregon's culture and people and the magic they provide. It's an energy that is unique to Oregon too, one that also needs to be slightly exaggerated in order to convey the feeling visitors can have when they engage with Oregon's #1 asset, our people. You may recall we shared the script with you in December, and while the script has evolved, as they often do, the core scenes and idea of showcasing Oregon's people and culture remains. I'll walk you through just a few of the scenes to reground you in the creative. Do my best Don Draper here. So our 3rd installment of Oregon Only Slightly Exaggerated opens on a bustling farmer's market in Portland, where you'll also see Zume Samard working in her beloved food cart, Stretch the Noodle. Then we transition to the Pendleton Roundup, watching George Fletcher, a famous Black cowboy of Oregon's Wild East, in a horse procession of the Umatilla tribe. The ornate ceremonial regalia transforms into a vibrant kite flown by friends at the coast. We then find ourselves enwrapped in a magical production at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival before enjoying a glass of wine with Portland Trailblazer CJ McCollum and a surprise NBA legend. Lastly, we catch a glimpse of Park Ranger Melissa in the shadow of Mount Hood. From the first Only Slightly Exaggerated campaign, we balanced the fantastical elements with the fact that these are real places and experiences you can have in Oregon. The balance we seek with this new work is positioning Oregon as the perfect escape from life's stresses, while acknowledging many consumers are still concerned about safety. So where appropriate, we'll be addressing COVID safety protocols in subtle ways. Animation of this quality typically takes about 9 to 10 months to produce. This affords opportunities to incorporate many small details and Easter eggs that provide deeper engagement, as people tend to watch the content over and over. While some Easter eggs are fun, many details are intentionally designed to be jumping off points for the development of deeper stories. Because this campaign focuses on the people and culture of Oregon, it's important to ensure that it accurately represents the diverse communities of Oregon and is welcoming to all. We executed our most extensive DEI work to date for this campaign by conducting 6 focus groups. 4 focus groups were conducted with the internal affinity groups at Wine and Kennedy, We Black, Latinx, Asiancy, and W Queer. 2 focus groups were conducted with Travel Oregon fans who live in and out of state. We received great information from over 7 hours of conversations and came away with 12 key takeaways. I'd like to share just a few of those takeaways and how these learnings are impacting the creative. First, authenticity is key when showing different cultures and traditions. One way we applied this to OSE was in the scene at the Pendleton Roundup. We met with the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla for input on the scene and created space for them to define how they wanted to be represented. Another one is creating stories specific to the group we're trying to reach. We heard through the focus groups there's a difference between welcoming to all and welcoming to me, and the importance of sharing the stories of real Oregonians. The content team is working on over 20 stories for this campaign, including many that focus on the people and culture of Oregon, including showcasing the unique foods and cultures in Portland, the profile of Ranger Melissa, helping communities impacted by wildfire and accessible trails, as well as a profile of George Fletcher, the groundbreaking Black cowboy that competed in the Pendleton Roundup in 1911. Another takeaway is the importance of showing interactions between people of different races. One place you'll see this is in the winery scene with 2 couples who are mixed race. They are Portland Trailblazer CJ McCollum and Bill Walton with their wives Elise and Lori. This is a very high-level timeline of our work through 2021 and into 2022. We'll continue to work toward our June 1st launch of Welcome to Oregon Again. It'll be followed by a period of wildfire awareness and prevention messaging over the peak summer months, and then launching only slightly exaggerated in early fall, probably around September. Our approach remains flexible as the COVID situation evolves, and we'll continue to remain focused on those 3 pillars of stewardship, safety, and business resiliency. We'll also begin looking ahead at launching a new inspirational campaign in the spring of 2022, keeping the Oregon Track and Field Championships top of mind as a major opportunity in front of us. With that, I'll open it up for any questions.
All right, Kevin, thank you. Great update. Commissioners, are there any questions for Kevin at this time? Commissioner Willits.
Yeah, Kevin, lots of information there, and I know we're going to have a lot of questions for you. The vaccination to travel was one of the first points advertised, vaccinate to travel. It is our easiest path to getting tourism back up and running, and would love to see extra effort put there, because I haven't seen, I've seen the state do some of the work preemptively there, but we are now turning away vaccine doses at the fairgrounds, and we don't have people signed up for new vaccinations. I would love to hear an example of a weird Oregon road trip. That was one of your examples. And is the park ranger Melissa the woman who forwarded the message at the start of COVID?
So I'll take it from the top. So that was in our last meeting with the governor's team. It was really interesting, the data that they had done I think it was some surveying or some polling. This is what, 3 weeks ago, where it was those that had not been vaccinated, and Sarah will correct me if I butcher this stat, but the idea that like only 1 in 3 people who haven't been vaccinated are interested in getting vaccinated. There's a variety of reasons why, and so that is their big push. And when it comes to the medical side of things, we're the sharer of the information. It's not like Travel Oregon is telling you to do this. We're passing on information from our health experts, and so it behooves us all for us to, the more vaccinations we have, the less spread, and the more it will help with all the variants that are circulating as well. So We continue to meet with OHA and OHSU to collaborate on what that messaging looks like and how we communicate that out, because they've got kind of that data as far as, you know, what is the messaging. We're just sharing that messaging. And yes, Melissa Ranger Melissa is the woman who joined us, who wrote the note and joined us at the December meeting. So we've been having fun figuring out a compelling way to incorporate her into the creative. I don't, off the top of my head, I will have to get back to you. I don't know if I want to scoop the content team with our weird road trips, but I don't have them at the top of my head. I'd have to give that back to you. If when Richard shares where he is, I will he shares his where he's at, I'll share this. But no, seriously, we can get those road trips to you. I just need to get with the content team.
Thank you. One final thing on the vaccinations. There is I've come into contact with ethnic, religious complications related to it, which could play a role in how you send out that information. Specifically, Spanish speakers have an adversity to vaccinations, yet maybe aren't aware that travel for them will be around the state will be easier once they are vaccinated as well. But anyway, thank you.
Thanks.
I understand any trip with Commissioner Willits where at the end of the day you wind up crashing in the bed of his pickup would qualify as a weird road trip. That's the latest word I got. But I will add on a serious note that the latest research I saw at a national level was talking about how while only roughly 26% of Americans had been vaccinated, closer to 45% of those who would describe themselves as being travelers have been vaccinated. So those that are planning to travel are more apt to pursue the vaccine. Probably more of a correlation than a causation because the research doesn't necessarily indicate that, but I thought it was still an interesting correlation to call out. So Commissioner DeNovo, you had a question.
Kevin, as always, great work. Thank you to you and the team. I believe masks are going to be with us for the next few years. So one of the questions I had was there any consideration in the Only Slightly Exaggerated campaign of showing some of those characters wearing masks? Yes,
we have deliberated quite extensively on this. I mean, there is this inherent challenge in that the whole creative concept is that positioning Oregon as its escape from all the things that, you know, back in the day it was email overload and the 24-hour news cycle. And obviously, you know, people are more stressed out, obviously, having gone through a global pandemic. So the creative still stands up in that way. What we've wrestled with is that balance of incorporating things like masks and social distancing into that creative, which kind of goes against that idea of Oregon is that place where you can escape all that. That said, we know there's the reality that you know, consumers want to know that the destination is thinking about safety. And so and a long way to answer your question is the answer is yes. So some of the scenes that I put in there, I think the Shakespeare Fest showed a crowded or whatever, a fully, you know, full capacity venue. And you know, in the final, we will not have a full capacity venue. Where we will be showing masks. And so it's been a tough one for us, but we've decided at the end of the day that we need to incorporate those types of things in there because I mean, that is our new reality.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that question, Lucinda. Commissioner Francisco.
Sorry, I was on mute. Mine's just more of a comment, and it was, I really love seeing the connection between the strategic plan that we just went through. I know that's for the next biennium, but the focus on DEI, and then how you guys have worked that into the marketing campaign and brought that to life in what I think is a very authentic way, seeing that is, what you guys have done a good job is connecting the only exaggerated campaign with real places, and now you've connected it with real people, which I think really brings that extra level of authenticity. And I really applaud you guys for doing that. I think it's something that's unique to us that we can own, and we can do a good job at. And I think you guys have done that. So thank you.
Thanks. We're really proud of the work that we've done in this space, and I'll at the same time acknowledge we've got a long ways to go. And we've also created a series of DEI KPIs, whether it's our target audience or the creative side or the content, that we're just trying to figure out. We think that these are measures that we want to begin to measure, and we're going to be using Welcome to Oregon as that kind of kickoff to say, all right, can we track these things? Do they make sense? So then we've got some baseline measures moving forward that we can start with.
Thank you, Nigel. Commissioner Sugihara.
All right, Kevin, I just got to say, I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. The new series just looks absolutely amazing. And I just love the creative that comes out of this with the vibrant colors and everything that's included, all the topics covered. I just want to say, I'm going to miss you guys so much and gals so much when my term comes to an end, but keep up that good work. And if you could do me a favor, the background on your Zoom is awesome too. Is that from sort of the campaign? And if so,
kind of, I was inspired by, I went down a rabbit hole. I will share a link with you. So you recall, I didn't share the creative because I think I shared it back in December with you guys, the Welcome to Oregon again.
Yeah.
Bob Ross is featured in the creative. And the New York Times just did an amazing 10-minute piece of content on him over the weekend. And so I don't know, I've just been inspired by Bob Ross lately. He speaks to, I will share this. He's just a happy guy, and the campaign is designed to evoke happiness. And I figured if I put this background on, it would make you happier, Kenji.
Yes, I am very happy. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenji. Commissioner Ponzi.
Yeah, just quickly, just kudos. Thank you so much for throwing some Pinot Noir. I'm sure it's Pinot Noir, and if it's Cab, that's fine. Gamay, I don't care. But thank you for showing some red wine in a glass. Yeah, send me that link too. I think is that Three Sisters. Is that Three Sisters?
Yes, let's say yes. I have no idea.
Oh, come on now, it's got to be authentic. Come on. Don't send it to me unless it's authentic.
This is what I found on the internet that I thought was Bob Ross and most spoke to Oregon. I don't know if he's actually called.
You got to check it out. Research then first. Sorry. Never mind. No, great job, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks. And I do think Travel Oregon, we are due. I've been talking to Mo. I think we need a new series of Zoom backgrounds to get some fresh ones. And maybe they're all Bob Ross style. I don't know.
All right, Kevin, great job. I don't see any other questions, so thanks. Appreciate the update.
Thank you all.
Commissioners, next, we'd like to provide you with a proposed modification to our RCTP, our Regional Cooperative Tourism Program guidelines. And for that, I will ask Teresa O'Neill. Teresa is our VP of Global Strategic Partnerships, and she will be joined by Kate Sapel, who is our RCTP Program Manager. Teresa.
Thank you, Todd. Hello, commissioners. And while I love Kevin's background too, I have to say I really still like some of the backgrounds that show the wonderful Central Oregon one in my background today. And I would also love to have that smell outside my room today as well, Greg Willits. I am just doing a procedural update to the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program today. And joining me is Kate Sapel, who is the project manager for the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program. And Kate works closely with Harry Dalgard, who's actually currently out on paternity leave. But I really like to take the opportunity to have the staff join whenever possible, because really Kate works very closely with the regional partners and actually makes those meetings happen and all of the different things that we serve the RDMO partners. So Kate will finish up the presentation, but just quickly, I will move to the first slide, Kate. Thank you. Next slide would be great.
Just 1 second. Sorry, I'm having a hard
No
time
problem.
going to the next slide. There we go.
So these guidelines really are to assist the RDMOs in moving forward as soon as possible with their plans. And so we are removing the July 1 invoice date from the RCTP guidelines. And the updated language will allow the RDMOs to invoice the RCTP funds prior to July 1. And this allows, as I said, the RDMOs to begin work once the plans are approved. And also, this also allows Travel Oregon not to roll those RCTP funds into the next fiscal year. So it's getting those funds out to the partners as soon as possible. And with that, I'll turn the last slide to Kate.
All right, so here we just wanted to show you what this revised language looks like. So as you can see in the red box, this was the previous language that is current or was in the RCTP guidelines. And this is on page 9 of the RCTP guidelines. And I just want to let everyone know that those guidelines can be found on our industry site. But that language, as Teresa had described, reads, for approved plans, RDMOs may submit invoices for the full fiscal year funding on or after July 1 of the corresponding fiscal year. So in the green is the update to those RCTP guidelines. So just a technical change here. So the language denotes that RCTP funds are available for distribution when plans are approved by Travel Oregon staff and fully executed agreements are in place. And just to kind of ground everyone in this process, we also included item number 3, which reads that RCTP guideline modifications are contingent upon 1, a commission approved budget, 2, a staff approved regional plan, and 3, a fully executed agreement in place. And that's really the gist of our update today. So I can pause if there are any questions for Teresa or myself.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Teresa. Commissioners, any questions about the amendment being made to the RCTP guidelines?
Maybe just the comment, what a small but mighty act this is, and to acknowledge the benefit that this brings to the our regional program partners is just, I mean, it's dramatic, and it's been a topic of conversation for some time, and to have it be a topic of action like this is really inspiring. So just merely an expression of gratitude to both of you, Teresa and Kate, and all of your team and partners for the work you do.
Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate that.
Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. So Teresa, Kate, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioners, our final update for you today is regarding the Governor's Conference on Tourism, the 2021 Governor's Conference on Tourism, coming up in June. And it is my pleasure to turn this report over to Lisa Edel, who's our Director of Global Strategic Partnerships. Lisa.
Thank you so much, Todd, and thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to update you today on the Oregon Governor's Conference on Tourism. In April 2020, Travel Oregon was supposed to have our Rural Oregon Governor's Conference on Tourism in Sun River, Oregon. Unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions, the decision was made to postpone that event. Due to current COVID restrictions, Travel Oregon will host a virtual conference June 5th to 16 using the Hyatt Regency Portland and Oregon Convention Center as our recording location. And we are thrilled to announce that we will return to an in-person conference in 2022. This year's conference will be a complete virtual environment and offered without a registration fee, in hopes that more local tourism professionals across the state will attend. We want them to have the resources to be prepared and equipped as we get on the other side of the pandemic. Currently, there are over 350 industry professionals registered for the conference. There will be a big conference push via our industry newsletter and strategic partners on May 12th. And our goal is to have at least 600 Oregon tourism professionals in attendance. The conference will kick off the evening of June 15th with the Oregon Governor's Conference Tourism Achievement Awards. Governor Brown will join us virtually with a pre-recorded video sharing her perspective on the importance of Oregon's tourism industry. The annual awards recognize people and organizations across the state that go the extra mile to enhance the travel and tourism industry. Nominated by their peers, the award recipients are outstanding examples of professionals who, by virtue of their vision, perseverance, and dedication, are a credit to Oregon's tourism and hospitality industry. The award categories displayed on the screen are new and were recommended specifically for this conference. Our traditional awards will be considered again in 2022. We had 38 award submissions, and we look forward to sharing the winners and their stories with you very soon. Virtual attendees can expect powerful opening and closing sessions. We will look at how to reimagine Oregon's tourism industry and work together to accelerate the state's recovery. We will also have some must-see inspiration and entertainment from an Olympic athlete, best-selling author, and a cameo from our international contractors. I would like to share some short clips with you. Please keep in mind what you are seeing is raw footage. That will give you a sneak peek into our conference.
In the opening session, you heard it's been a challenging year, and we're now ready to reimagine and welcome inspiration. Oregon's bounty and landscapes allowed us to be outside, support friends and neighbors, and be resilient. I'm honored to now introduce two inspiring who've supported each other for many years. Shalane Flanagan, an Olympic athlete and winner of the New York City Marathon, and Elise Kopecki, athlete, chef, and award-winning author. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. I'm just going to dive right in to some questions.
Sounds great.
What does it mean to you to be an Oregonian after having lived here for many years?
You know, Elise and I both were brought out here because of work, so we grew up on the East Coast, and I think our relationship with Oregon has, evolved. It was originally for work, and now we've started our families here, and we also have dove into a whole new level of love of agriculture and food. So to me, being an Oregonian is very much being in sync with nature. That's what I think of when I think of Oregon, and the love of rain.
And the love of rain. Great answer. Elise?
For me, it's really truly a home. I grew up in upstate New York and then moved south to North Carolina and spent a good part of my childhood in North Carolina and never really felt like I fit in until I moved to the West Coast and moved to Oregon. And the values in Oregon just match my values, which is a love of nature and outdoors and adventure and food and just a simpler way of life from what I experienced growing up.
And we look forward to sharing more of that footage with you soon. We've also missed seeing our friends from across the globe this past year. And I'd like to show you now how they are doing and to show you their continued love for Oregon.
Servus, grüezi und hello! Greetings from Switzerland to all the attendees of the Oregon Governors Conference. My name is Susanne and I represent the beautiful state of Oregon in the German-speaking countries, Germany, Austria and Switzerland. What can I tell you about my market? The US has been and still is the #1 long-haul destination for the German-speaking travelers. What do we love about Oregon? Well, basically everything. We love the diversity, we love the wide open spaces, we love the small charming towns, we love Portland, the scenic byways, the road trip opportunities, the Native American and the cowboy experiences, and the pioneer history. We love it all and we cannot wait to finally come back. The pent-up demand is really high. Tour operators, media, travel agents, you know, they are ready to travel. Our suitcases are packed, you know, we are ready to go.
Again, what you just saw were just some short clips of raw footage, and we can't wait to share the complete interviews with Shalene and Elise, and for you all to hear from all of our international contractors. The annual Governor's Conference on Tourism is not possible without the generous support of our sponsors and exhibitors. We are very grateful to have our longtime friends and partners at the Port of Portland, Travel Portland, and the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association sponsoring the 2021 virtual conference. I feel it's very important to note almost 90% of sponsors and exhibitors for the postponed 20 conference in Sun River graciously rolled their sponsorship over to 2022. Local businesses and their families need our help now more than ever. And with the partnership of Burgerville and DoorDash, we are asking conference attendees to order takeout or delivery during the conference lunch break and support restaurants in their community. All conference attendees that register by May 26 will receive a $15 gift card to either Burgerville or DoorDash, and communities without these partners will receive a gift card to a restaurant in their community. What a year it's been. A year full of forced changes, uncertainties, and unexpected plot twists. The message is clear though, we will event again, and we are excited to be working with our friends at the Central Oregon Visitors Association and Sun River Resort to host the 2020 Oregon Governor's Conference on Tourism in person. Thank you for your time today. I look forward to seeing you all online at the inaugural virtual Oregon Governor's Conference. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those now.
So great, Lisa. Thank you so much for the update. Commissioners, any questions for Lisa? Commissioner Willits.
Just an observation that was very uplifting to have somebody excited to travel across the pond or across Atlantic or Pacific for that matter to visit Oregon, and that message when it goes live, I'd love to share it with even my staff, and filled me with joy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for you to see all of their videos, and we're working really hard with our international team to make sure that feeling is spread across the entire industry. So thanks for noting that.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Commissioners, any other questions? Lisa, I'm not seeing any. Great job.
All right, thank you.
All right. That wraps up the reports, updates, and discussion portion of the agenda. Chair Youngblood, it's my privilege to turn the agenda back over to you.
Thank you, Todd. And Lisa, thank you so much for the presentation, and to all of our staff presenters today. And as I mentioned at the top of today's meeting, in spite of all that we've been through over the past, gosh, almost a year and a half now, the comfort, the inspiration, and the sense of purpose and even destiny that we find in these presentations, in the body of work, in the progress, and the persistent driving nature of Travel Oregon. As an employer, as an Oregonian, these are the things that give me hope. These are the things that provide inspiration to me, the knowledge that it is going to get better, and consistent with questions that many of you commissioners asked earlier during the presentations. The restored demand and the speed with which we expect this recovery to occur when when travel is enabled is really going to be swift and dramatic. I, for one, look forward to the problems associated with being really, really busy again, as maddening as those will be sure at the time. Commissioners, thank you all for your time today. Todd, did you have any additional remarks?
Just that in closing, I want to thank the members of the commission. I want to thank the members of the Travel Oregon team, and I want to thank our regional partners and industry stakeholders for their contributions to the rebuild plan, to the work that we've been able to accomplish so far, and for the work that we're going to be able to do as we go forward and really reimagine how the industry can be transformed for the betterment of Oregon and for the betterment of our industry as well. So thank you for what you've done, and thank you for what we're going to be doing together over the next 6 to 8 months as we build this transformational plan together.
And one last reminder to our industry partners that the comment period on the draft 2021 through 23 strategic plan and budget will remain open via the Travel Oregon industry site through May 18th. Our next Tourism Commission public meeting in conjunction with the Governor's Conference on Tourism will be June 15th. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Make it a great day.
Thank you.